Welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. This podcast was created for the boomer woman leaving corporate, and now you're looking to reinvent yourself, become an author, an entrepreneur, a podcaster. Well, each episode will leave you with clarity. You will come away with the yes, I can and yes, I will reinvent myself mindset. So come on, let's do this. I'm your host, Margot Levette. This episode is sponsored by WOMEL. More than a leadership magazine, WOMEL is a resource that helps women grow their business, mentoring, attentive support, and services. To learn more about WOMEL services and the magazine, go to their website. Go to WOMELLE.com or give them a call at 702-747-3054. Leadership, influence, build your business, do and have it all with WOMEL. Contact them today. Hello, everybody. Back again, Margot Levette. Brand new episode, Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Well, today we're going to jump right into it because, boy, oh boy, do we have a great show for you. Barb Ingrassia is here. She's going to tell us all about copywriting. I had a myriad of questions, so many questions. And so I'm glad that she's going to be out. She is our guest today. Let me tell you a little something about Barb. She knows her stuff, first of all right? And she is the creator, founder of Manage Copyright. Don't let it manage you. I so love that. Don't let it manage you. And as the conversation goes on, I'm sure that she has some stories that she will impart to us where, copywriting, if we don't manage it, it has managed some people and probably met not such a good outcome, but we'll get into that. Barb is a speaker. She is a copyright expert. And as I say, her company is Manage Copyright. She comes from an academic library background. She's studied the murkiness, and it is murky when you think about, of copyright law with the Center for Intellectual Property at the University of Maryland, the Special Libraries Association, Duke University, the Brickman Center at Harvard Law School. And I tell you, she can really give us the information that we need in this digital age. We can't sleep on, I don't know, I didn't know, we have to know, and today we will know. So welcome, Barbara. Thank you for joining us this day.
Well, thank you, Margot, so much for inviting me to share with you and your listeners. I have a passion for raising awareness about copyright and bringing some fun to a heavy but important topic. So thanks so much.
Well, I tell you, this is such a heavy but fun topic that I want to give everybody a heads up. This is a two-part conversation because, we have people speaking about this, but I want to bring someone who's bringing reliable information. So it's not only this week that we're having the conversation, but the following week. So just want to bring that to everybody's attention. This is such a great conversation. It is two parts. So Barbara, let's start out the conversation with the difference between copyright and patent. Will you set us straight on that?
Well, yes. Intellectual property, as opposed to physical property, we know about our car and our house and our chairs and whatnot as physical property, but intellectual property is more intangible. It's of the mind. And where it might become physical property, it starts out in our minds. And we can't protect ideas. We must express them and get them down into a tangible medium. Then we can protect them. So patents, we are accustomed to inventions and innovations in systems. Trademark protects our brand, our logo, our company name, our saying, so that's protecting our business. And then copyright is something that most of us, all of us, encounter all the time. And that protects original works of authorship. And authorship is defined broadly as certainly writings, but also music, compositions, formulas, designs. So they need to be original, creative, and fixed in a tangible medium for them to be protected. And what I'm sharing with you today is information, so please don't consider it legal advice. For that, you would want to talk to your attorney. But there are a lot of copyright basics that we can cover.
Okay. So you're really just giving us information so that we can tell the difference between and determine what we need, which is this is huge for me, just absolutely huge. Barbara, I'm wondering now, here we are, it's 2019. Do you find that many of us do not have our information, our trademarks, our logos, our company names? We don't have a lot of this protected. And I guess this is so big, I'm trying to still wrap my mind around it. I want to have some fun with this also. Today, here we are, 2019. Where do we begin to be protected? Especially since we're here on the internet, everybody has information, access to everybody's information. Where do we start to get protection?
Well, those are very good points. And the internet has opened up the world to us. Copyright, for example, has been around since the founding of the country and before. And it was to serve as an incentive for people to create what would become the new American culture. So that offering a protection, sort of a monopoly for a limited period of time, so that people would want to create, they'd be able to monetize and benefit from that creation. But then we're also balancing that against the public good and what's important for society. So copyright, you know about the C in a circle, C in a circle, the year, whoever owns the copyright, and then typically all rights reserved. Mm-hmm. Well, since 1989, we have not had to have that C in a circle. We have not had to apply to the U.S. Copyright Office to get a copyright. Copyright exists the minute you meet those three criteria. Something is original, creative, and fixed in a tangible medium. That could be print, that could be online, it could be the internet, video, audio. So fixed in a tangible medium. So that's not just floating in the air. Although the internet seems as if it's floating in the air, and that's where some people are confused. They think because it's floating out there, it's free to use. And it's not. It is protected by copyright. That content on the internet is certainly eligible for copyright protection.
So let me stop you right there. Just yes. I want to make sure that everybody heard that. As soon as that something becomes original, and what was that second? Creative or
and fixed.
Okay. As soon as that happens, it's copywritten, even though you don't see the C behind it. Wow.
Right. And so that has led us to some confusion. We may have had it emphasized to us in English classes and elsewhere, be looking for that C. Mm-hmm. Well, you assume then, if you don't see a C, that it must not be protected by copyright, that it must be in the public domain. So this is something that we need to be aware of. And in fact, it's best to assume something is protected by copyright until you can determine otherwise. There are things that aren't protected, but it's a good rule of thumb to assume that something is protected by copyright. If you didn't create it, if somebody else created it and has the copyright, then you need to be thinking about that it's might require permission, or you've got to think through some options. So we think about copyright as being something for famous authors or musicians or photographers, but it does apply to all of us. We all use copyrighted content, but we also create copyrighted content. We might think that it's not worth anything, but it meets the criteria. The advantage to adding the C in a circle and the year and the copyright owner, and again, typically all rights reserved, is that it notifies people that this is copyrighted. They don't have to wonder, there's no C in a circle, is there a C in a circle? There's a C in a circle. However, going one step further and registering it with the U.S. Copyright Office gives you additional important protections, such as you have a public record that can be searched, that you have the copyright to this. Mm-hmm. Also, should you need to take someone to court for using your content without permission, you would receive increased damages. And you've got that public record as proof. So there are definite advantages to that. It's not expensive and it's not difficult to do, so that it is really worth that time and a little bit of effort. And that's one thing that I help people do.
Okay, wow. That's important to know that, you have that extra added layer of protection. Everything it's already copywritten as soon as you meet those 3 criteria. But that added layer of protection when you register it, that's very, very important. So does a person have to, you offer this service to people. Mm-hmm. So Barbara, is it done do we have a billion forms to fill out? And how does that, what are the steps in filling out that form? Can Joe Blow go to Zoom and do it? How difficult is it to actually register and get that copyright?
Typically, it's very straightforward. The forms are online at the Copyright Office. It's copyright.gov. So looking for the section on how to register a work, there are tutorials and whatnot to help you through that process. Most items are pretty straightforward. There can be complications sometimes if there's more than one author, or depending on what it is. Is it is it software? Is it a computer program versus a straightforward book? So that there are some little shades in there, but it's very straightforward, very inexpensive. Now, you do typically have to send in some way a copy of your work so that they have that there, of course, on file. This all can take a few months just because of the numbers of things they have to go through. But once they have all the pieces they need, the application form, your fee, and the deposit, that date then will become your effective date of copyright, no matter how long it takes for them to actually get back to you and say, yes, here's the certificate. So you do sort of put it out there and then wait. Mm-hmm. And of course you can check online to see what the status of your application is, but it's pretty straightforward and well worth the time and the effort. Some people will register several things at a time as a group.
Elaborate on that, Barbara. I was wondering about that because a lot of people, a lot of folks that come onto the show, they have many books and quite a few books that they've written and articles and products and services, but it's all bundled into an offshoot from their business. How does that work when they come to you? And I'm just going to put it on out there. You say that it's very straightforward. I think that the process is straightforward because you are the expert. So a person should really get with you. But when they come with you and they have all of this material and everything's up under one umbrella, can they bring it all to you and you register it all at the same time?
Well, there's that wonderful old legal term, it depends.
Mhm.
So a book might be best done solo or as an individual item. Maybe there's a book and a video that could be registered as a kit. Um, Articles, for example, you want to make sure that you retain the copyright to those. That's an important point. If you write something for someone else, they may hold the copyright. And so it's very important to read that fine print. What is that you are licensing them to do for you? So that is very important. But if you're holding the copyright, you could bundle several articles together. Maybe you file this, maybe you do something quarterly or every half year or every year. There are limits to how many things you can group together. They all must be by the same author or authors. But it is a good way to do several things at once. Sometimes people will do that with photographs. There are pros and cons to this. The con is that if you are infringed on any of the items in that little collection, you only can claim, the big bucks once. Mm-hmm. But it is a way to get that public record out there.
Okay. Wow, that's something too. You really touched on something, especially for those of us that submit to magazines on a weekly or monthly basis, or I would imagine even a blog. Make sure that you understand the fine print. Wow. And sometimes you're so anxious and glad to get it accepted. You don't even read. I don't often read the fine print, but that's something to consider. Wow.
Well, the fine print is long and it's fine, and it's in a language most of us don't understand. Mm-hmm. But we get so excited about being published that we say, yes, give me the form and I'll sign it. Uh-huh. But it's good to know what you're giving away. In the older days, people signed things over to publishers, and it was for any format now known or to be known in the future. Mm-hmm. All languages, all countries, and you had to almost pledge your house or your left arm or something. So now authors are much more savvy, especially those who are self-publishing. Mm-hmm. Typically are holding the copyright. There are advantages for having a publisher do a lot of that work, but it's becoming easier and easier now to self-publish. So it's just important to think about those things. I want to toss in that many of us have heard of sealing our work in an envelope and then putting that in an envelope and mailing it to us and not opening it, so that there's that postmark on it.
Yes.
That's called the poor man's copyright, and it doesn't substitute for registering. So It really doesn't have a holding in court.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because back in the day when I was part of a poetry group, we religiously did that, Barbara.
Right.
And we held them for years. Oh my goodness. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you heard the poor man's copyright is no longer legit. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Barbara, real quick, will you tell us about, you've already given us the 3 criteria that let everybody know that something is copywritten. But what about those of us who are still on the internet? We see a picture that we like. We see an article. We don't see the C. We do not assume that it's copywritten. And we just grab it. Somebody could grab up anything. How do you, if somebody grabs your article, somebody grabs your logo, they're bodacious enough to grab your logo, what steps do you take? Who do you report them to? What do you do?
Well, there are steps you can take. Certainly with the logo, that would be a trademark issue. Mm-hmm. But in terms of taking your blog post, that too often happens. or grabbing an image. You do a search for something and you see all these wonderful images and you grab the one that's your favorite and on you go. And maybe you don't think anything about it until you get a letter in the mail from an attorney who's not your attorney saying that you have used a client's work without permission, and you should stop immediately. You should take it down. If you put it out in print, you should pull all those back and destroy them, pay for a retroactive license, sort of paying damages kind of thing. And it's very scary. And it takes you away from what you want to be doing. And that's where I talk about, I have a program called Guard Your Gold Mine, so that there are things you can do as you're creating to minimize the risk of people taking things. If people want to take things, they're going to take them one way or another. So then you need to think about, well, what's the harm been to me? Are they making money? Are they threatening my brand by confusing people? How much time do I want to take? How much time and money do I want to invest in pursuing this? What do I really want for an outcome? Do I want someone who has perhaps unknowingly violated copyright? They aren't aware. Maybe you just want them to take it down, or maybe you want them to provide a link back to you or give you credit. Or maybe you want them to split the profits with you. And so this can all become more and more complicated. Certainly you can email them and say, educate them that this is my work and you don't have permission to use it. You could go another step and ask their web host to take it down. You could file a takedown notice through the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and you could go all the way to having an attorney and go to court. Sometimes you have to take into account the time and the expense to this. Do you just cross it off and consider it a lesson learned, the price of doing business, and get back to creating? So there's all those levels to consider. Sometimes you can be right, or well, we're going to say that you're right, and you can win, but the offender might not have any money, and it's cost you attorney's fees. So there's all that to call into the balance. And that's why I like to help people guard their gold mine before they go public with it.
Guard your gold mine, because what you've created really is a gold mine, especially if it's kicking off a campaign, something that you're going full speed on. That's incredible. I just have a quick question about facts. When we get information from Edison or any Brookings, we get information, facts that are made public to people. Are we able to use those facts in our articles and our research and that type of thing? Are we in our reports? How flexible are those companies with their facts and how we can use them?
Well, that is a very good point. And again, it's a matter of looking for what they say you can do with it. You scroll down to the bottom of the screen and you see something called terms and conditions or copyright or privacy. And so you look there to see what they allow you to do. Now, facts that are so common to us, that are just out there, that George Washington was the first president of the United States, or they're 12 inches in a foot, 12 months to the year. Generally accepted facts cannot be copyrighted. Titles can't be copyrighted. They might become a trademark, but short phrases and titles, data, again, ideas can't be copyrighted. But again, they could fall into something else, trademark or patent.
Mm-hmm.
So not everything is copyrightable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So once again, just double check. Assume that it's copywritten, and just scroll down, take that extra moment, and just double check that thing out. That's fascinating because people do research, bloggers, even podcasters.
Mm-hmm.
That's wow. Will you elaborate a little? Sounds like you're going to say something else. I was going to ask you a question, but what was your thought? Because I just heard your voice go up.
Well, how can we use that kind of information? Certainly, we want to give credit, but credit isn't always enough. It's not permission. It just protects us from plagiarism. So that the exclusive rights of the copyright holder are to copy, create derivative works, other versions, to display publicly or to perform publicly. So those are the rights that are protected by copyright. They might license them off to someone else to do, but those are the rights that are protected. So if you think link, you have a resource that is very good. Put the URL in, put a link in so that the reader can go to that and access it. You might put in a couple of sentences beforehand that this piece is about such and such, and I think it's important for you to see because, rather than reproducing it, making a PDF, anything like that, you think link. Because a link is a fact, and it's not making a copy. Now, when the person clicks on it, what they do, that's up to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought that point. Oh my God, that's very, very important. Think link. All right. Especially for blogging or
Yes.
you're doing a report on something and where you are imparting information to people. That's important. Wait a minute. That has me thinking there's something that I recently created. I better think link. Thank you, Barbara. Oh my goodness.
Yes, and if you can't link, stop and think. Could you paraphrase or summarize or do some bullet points? Again, you got to be careful of that, not to take too much or too literally or whatever. But there are things that you can do if you can't link.
Mm-hmm.
Linking's the best.
Linking is the best. Duly noted. Linking is the best, ladies and gentlemen. And that does get you away from plagiarism. Wow. Okay. How do people, Barbara, we have covered a lot. There's a lot more. Oh, you know what? I just have one other question, and I promise one other question. This thing of music is so huge. We've heard people speak about music that they want to use on YouTube, and I understand YouTube has really gotten quite strict on what you use in your videos and that type of thing, and put it up on YouTube. Facebook, very strict,
Yes.
There was a time when you could just go ahead and almost do a music show on Facebook, just bringing in YouTube channels, that type of thing. I did it myself back in the day, but all of that has changed. Will you talk to us about what happens? What should we look for when we are doing a blog or something calls for music, we're doing a commercial or something like that? We go to what's called royalty-free sites or whatever, and we're buying music. What do we look for so that we can get the proper license and not get ourselves in trouble while we're getting this project off the ground?
Well, you're absolutely right that there are places to go for photos too, we know, but licensing, but again, reading what's allowed in that license. How long are you going to be able to use this? How far and wide can you distribute it? So there is a difference between royalty free and not royalty free in the paid services. There is public domain access as well. Some people will say that you can sample a piece of music if you use no more than 3 seconds, or with print things, no more than a page or no more than 10 lines of poetry or whatever. And those aren't in the copyright law. So again, you need to assume that it's protected by copyright. Read any licenses carefully. If the site looks kind of shady, it might say free, but it just might not really be legitimate. They may have taken stuff from someplace else, and then you become liable. So again, it's just understanding what it is you want and need, and then making sure that's what you get.
Wow. Stick with when you are, there's cheap, and then there is cheap that's going to cost you in the long run.
That's right.
And I think it would behoove everybody to go to the reputable sites. So the brands that are known, where people in your industry, where they always go. And these folks have a good reputation. It's trackable. Their reputations are stand up. So yeah, I wanted to know about that also. That's very important. Read that fine print. How long does that license hold? Is it international? Can you use it for commercials? I see over on Fiverr, this is something else I want people to pay attention to. On Fiverr, you're getting something reproduced. You have, especially for us podcasters, you're getting somebody to do your intro or outro. There's a little box there oftentimes. Is it going to be for commercial use? Do check that. You want, even from Fiverr, you want everything to be legitimate. So I was shocked when I saw that little box. That I had to hit the little I and ask, what is that all about? It wasn't always there,
right?
So.
Right. And so yes, we all click on I agree because we just want to keep moving on. But it's important to take a look at that. And now sometimes you're stopped. You can't just go on. I need to say that works published in the United States prior to 1924 are in the public domain. So they are no longer under copyright. So you could take a piece of sheet music, a Bach, Beethoven, that kind of thing, sheet music, and if you're a musician, you could play that and use it. It's the recordings that are not going to be out of copyright for a long, long, long time.
But sheet music, I would imagine certain books are in the public domain.
Yes. Yep. So it's looking at that copyright date. Copyright now in the United States lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. So that is a long, long time. But pre-1924 right now is in the public domain.
Is there a lot of work over there? Excuse me. I haven't been over there checking it out. Is there a lot over there for people to choose from?
Yes, certainly a lot of sheet music. There are public domain images, works created by the U.S. government by a federal employee within the scope of their job description. Those works are not protected by copyright. So we know the U.S. government has produced everything from how to grow tomatoes to best baby care, that whole range of things. And so those works are in the public domain. You have to be careful when you're looking at them online, because sometimes the government will have licensed something for us to be able to see, but it's not in the public domain.
So if we go to the public domain website, I imagine it's publicdomain.com, and it's over there. Is it safe to assume that it's the Wild Wild West and we have access?
Well, you're right. It's a wild, wild west web. And so it's always important to check to make sure, and if in doubt, move on. Assume that it's protected by copyright. Sites like Pixabay is a public domain site for images. You can look at public domain as a topic on Wikipedia, and you can see listings of possible sites to go to. Works on Wikimedia, which is media, all have to be shareable, but that doesn't mean that they're in the public domain. There may be conditions around using them. So, but those can give you some suggestions for where you can find public domain works.
So if it's to read the fine print, no matter what. If it's on the internet, don't assume that you can use it. Approach it as though it has a copyright. Always read the fine print. And if it's too good to be true, as with everything,
Right.
it's probably not going to work out. You're not going to get the outcome that you want. Correct?
Correct.
Wow. You answered so many questions for me and the audience, and there's more, Barb, that people could ask. And oh my goodness, mind your gold mine. Barbara, will you tell us how we get in contact with you? How do we take your classes? You have webinars. How do we really wrap our heads around this thing of copyright? And ladies and gentlemen, we will be back next week with part number 2.
Well, my website is managecopyright.com. That's MANAGECOPYRIGHT.com. You can go there to my homepage and on the left side, grab my free ebook, The 10 Biggest Copyright Mistakes Anyone Can Make That Could Land You in Court. And then I'm happy to offer your listeners a complimentary 30-minute website review. You know, how are things on your website? And you can contact me at Barb, B-A-R-B, at managecopyright.com. And in the subject line, put Margot.
Wow. That's valuable. Now, you know what? You never think about my website, how it's presenting itself. 30 minutes, and I'm sure you can take a look at it and boom, 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 boom. You can just assess it. Thank you, Barbara. That's huge. That's huge. Wow.
Well, this has been such fun, and thank you so much for inviting me to share with you and with your listeners.
Oh, I wouldn't have it any other way. This is what, we reinvent ourselves. We come from corporate and we don't have to think about these things, There are other people who have researched these things and we have the parameters already laid out for us. But when we're entrepreneurs, when we are doing this thing on ourselves, even as speakers, we need to know this stuff because nobody wants to offend somebody else's creative work because we don't want to have somebody in on our territory. But you made it quite clear about how to pick our fights, and I appreciate that. We can't beat up everybody that's treading in our backyard, but you set up, giving us good information, and for that I thank you. I tell anybody, hang on, part 2, where we dig a little deeper and we, take Barbara up on her 30-minute website review. You need that. Get in contact with her so that your work is protected. You don't want to just put the C there and you don't have it registered, okay?
And I love doing workshops for groups, customizing them and, bringing some fun to this heavy topic.
Sounds good. Also, you know what? When we go to your website, do we have access to guarding your gold mine, or is there information there, or how do we get involved in that?
Well, yes, I would, again, contact me at barb@managecopyright.com, Margot, and I can provide more information about that.
Okay. All right. She has opened up the treasure chest to you, everybody. So, don't sleep on this. Gosh. Barbara, I thank you again. I can't wait for our next conversation, which is going to be fun. I can't do it like you. But thank you. And listeners, thank you so much for your time. I hope that you had paper and pen out. If you didn't, that means that you have to take another listen, and you should do that anyway and take steps and get in conversation with Barbara offline, okay? We will be back next week. Brand new episode with Barbara and Ingrassia. I always send people over to my website, but guess what? I am getting a brand new website built, and you know, yeah, oh yeah, and who's going to actually get that 30-minute review from Barb? Me, because nobody wants to end up on the hit list. So you can't go over and buy my book because we are under construction, which is really, really good. So I'll let you know when that's available to you. But in the meantime, take care. And I have to say bye-bye. Thanks for listening. I want to thank you for listening to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Couple of things that I want you to do right now. Go to my website, pick up a copy of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Reinvention, how I went from game show hopping to international show host, author, and speaker in 1 year. Number 2, please freely listen to each and every episode. Share them out with your family, friends, the men in your lives. And then number 3, get in contact with me, one of the experts that have been on the show, because I want to make sure that you reinvent yourself. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode here on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation.